Hello guys, how are you? The Codeholic is here. I continue series on Yii2 framework, and in this video we're gonna see the configuration of the application, and we're gonna explore the config file, main config file. So this is the basic installation, and the application is started with PHP's built-in server. Okay, so I run PHP eserve and the application started, and I can navigate between pages. And let's have a look at the URL. So we see here index PHP !r equals site, and then the encoded version of /. Okay, so this site login is the root, current root, controller / controller ID / action ID. And now I want to change this, and using URL manager component I want to make this prettier. So I uncomment the code of URL manager, and which has here enable pretty URL true, show script name false. So what this basically do is the following. Let me remove this index PHP. So here when we navigate between pages, I don't see this index PHP anymore, and my URL is also prettier. So it's site / contact, not r equals site / contact. Okay, so that's the very first thing I want to do. Now let's have a look at the config file. So we talked about entry script, we know Lifecycle, and let's have a look at the config file and the application properties. Okay, so the config file basically is an associative array where key corresponds, some value corresponds to some key. Okay, and the keys are the public properties of the application. So ID, base path, bootstrap, alias, all of these are public properties of the application. And ID and base path are basically required properties, and the ID is just the unique identifier of your application, and the base path is the current folder in which the project lives. Okay, so the bootstrap is something a little bit advanced, so I will talk about bootstrap when I will talk about components. Okay, so this is connected to the components, and I'm not going also talk about components. We know that components are just singleton objects, and let's talk about the properties of the application itself. Okay, so the application has a couple of properties. As I said, ID and base path are only two required, so let's specify name. Okay, so hello world. Okay, let's go to the browser and have a look at the my application label in the navbar. So when I refresh the page, this changes into hello world. So that's because this name is taken and used in the layout file. Okay, so we have other options like language, for example. So when I don't fill the form and hit the login button, I see these validation errors. Username cannot be blank, and this cannot be blank basically is a text which comes from the core and it's translatable. So if I specify here a different language like DE, so the language corresponds to DE. And when I refresh the page and hit the login button, I see this error in German. Okay, so application has many other properties like default root. Okay, so default root, which by default is site. Okay, so let me comment this and show one thing. So when I don't put anything in the URL, so this is the current root, and I'm going to show this using debug bar. I'm going to explore this debug bar also in details, but for now, here is the root, and this indicates which root I am right now. So this is site / index. So that's site is the default, and if I put here only site, this also works fine. Okay, so I can change this, and the default root can be site / login. Okay, so and when I remove the path and refresh it, now I am on the login page. Okay, so that's the one property of the application. So application has other properties like layout, and by default this is main. So by default main PHP file is used, which is inside views layouts. So here is main PHP, and this is used by default. Okay, so for every page. If I change this into something like test, and I refresh the page, I see view not found error. So it searches now test PHP inside views layouts, and it just doesn't exist. Okay, so let me remove this also. And here are the all application properties, and I strongly recommend to check out this link, which will be in the video description, and see all the properties of the application. And here are a couple of them I just explained, like language and name. So it has time zone, and you need to specify this if your application runs in different time zone than the default one. So it's also by default, the time zone is taken from the PHP's Apache or Nginx server. Okay, so you need to change this. Here it has charset, default route we talked about. It has this layout path where the layout files are located, and by default this app views layouts. Okay, and the catch-all is basically a URL which will catch all incoming requests. So no matter on which URL we will be, if we specify this catch-all on application property, this action, this controller, and this action will be used for every URL. Okay, so that's how it works. And yeah, I want to talk about one thing. In E, there exist two types of applications: web application and console applications. Okay, so the console application in our example is created in E file, which is in the root directory. So this E, and this creates also this works in the same way. So it defines some constants and auto load in the E class, and then it loads the console config. So which also is in this config folder, so console PHP, and its structure is pretty similar to the web PHP. Okay, so this creates instance of E console application and runs it. Okay, so that's pretty similar. And we have also REST applications, but these are the child classes of the E web application. Okay, so we will cover REST, of course, in next videos. Okay, I want to talk about events of the application. So here you can find 4 main events for the application: beforeRequest, afterRequest, beforeAction, and afterAction. And we can listen on these events and do some particular actions. Okay, so on beforeRequest, for example, we can have a look in the cookies, and if there exists a current language, we can take out the current language and set it in the application. Okay, so let's go to the web and attach an event listener like on, then space, and then the event name beforeRequest. Okay, and this is an anonymous function. Okay, and we can here do some actions like, let me dump something. Okay, so from beforeRequest. Okay, so now let's go and refresh the page, and we don't see this dump because the nowbar is above it. Okay, let me put some beers here. Okay, so here is my dump, and I have right now enabled Xdebug, and that's why I don't see the default var dump result. Okay, so just a side note. Okay, so we can attach different event listeners on the application, like beforeAction, afterRequest, or afterAction. Okay, now let's have a look at the application lifecycle. Okay, what happens basically here? So first, the application config file is loaded, and then the application instance is created. So in previous video, we talked about the lifecycle and the application structure, but this is a little bit specific and more detailed version. Okay, so when the application instance is created, it calls this pre-init. Okay. Okay, let me do like this. Let me open, okay, I'm gonna close the console, okay, and let me open the application class by Control on your keyboard and mouse. Okay, so this is the application class, and it has some properties like default route. We talked about catch all. We don't see all properties here because some of the properties are belong to the parent class, e-base application. Okay, like here we have the constants, events, and below we see the name, charset, language, and so on. And even this file doesn't contain all properties because it's a child class of module. Application is module itself. Okay, it's a child class of the module, and if we follow the module, we will see some other properties like params, ID, module layout in the module. And the module is a child class of the service locator, and if we follow the service locator, we see components right here. Okay, which is a child class of the component, and this is a big tree of dependencies, parent and child classes. Okay, so let's go to the web application, and what happens here. So okay, so first the application is created and pre-init is called. Okay, so let's follow the and find the constructor of the application. E-base application, scroll down, and here is the constructor of the e-base application. Okay, so when the instance is created, it's saved in the e-app static property, and then the state is changed. Okay, and the instance is set also, and pre-init is called. After pre-init, error handler is registered as it is shown on the diagram, error handler. Then configure application properties, and after this the application properties are configured by this component construct. Okay, so we pass here associative array of configs, and this sets the application properties. Okay, we can follow this and we see econfigure. This econfigure static method is what basically works. Okay, and after this init is called, and here is the init, and let's find the init of the e-base application. Okay, here is the init, and when the init is called, the state is changed and the bootstrap is called. Okay, so here's the bootstrap, and after this the application is run. The similar process goes. The state is changed, the event is thrown, the request is handled. If there exists a module, then the URL will contain module also in its path. Okay, so it will be module ID / controller ID / action ID, and the action is run, and then the corresponding event is thrown, event after request, and the response is sent to the user. Okay, so you can find the link in the video description. As I said, I strongly recommend to check out this, read more about it, experiment with it, write some things. I haven't explained everything, of course, from this video, so you should definitely check out the link. Okay, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next time.